Alright, so today we're doing something a little bit different. I wanted to talk about something that we haven't talked about on this channel just yet, which is going to be my main Street Fighter 6 Terry, his matchup chart. Who do I think he does well against? Who do I think he does bad against? But before we get into who I think he does well and bad against, I want to start talking with showing off the #1 ranked Terry in the world, also known as Kintyo Ryu. He made his own matchup chart, and what I want to do is look at his first and kind of see what he's thinking with his, and then make our own. So let's get into it. So immediately when we start looking at this, we can tell that he starts up here with the top with Terry, which just means, you know, it's just where Terry is, because obviously you can't put a mirror character and say that he's going to do better than himself. But straight up, starting from the top, we think disadvantage-wise, he thinks that Akuma does a lot better than Terry does in the matchup, and with that I can honestly agree. I can definitely see where he's coming from with that. I think Akuma honestly is going to, for the most part, have the options that Terry's lacking, because they're both Shoto type characters, but one has just better options overall. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit rough overall for Terry to try to make up with what Akuma already has, because obviously he's probably the most well-rounded Shoto, other than the fact that he has like 9k health. And we have Guile, which I was actually very surprised to see, because I'm assuming at the top level, honestly, this probably makes a lot of sense. But yeah, where I'm sitting at, around like 1800 MR, I don't really struggle with Guile too much. I mean, I do find that low fireball kind of makes this matchup a lot easier. As a character who solely relies on projectiles, if I can just low fireball and just walk in, it's not that scary. And I can also kind of lock him down with OD fireball and just get in. Obviously I do have to spend meter to get in that way, but it is a free neutral skip tool, and Guile's whole neutral game is just throwing fireballs, so it's pretty strong overall. So I am surprised to see him saying how bad Terry apparently does against Guile. Then up next we have JP. This is one I've been talking about for a long bit. I am under the impression that Terry's worst matchup is JP. I think there's a lot of things I've been learning when it comes to options you can do to punish JP with Terry, but a lot of them are very specifically like not very consistent options, at least the ones that I've seen. Like, I've tried to learn some stuff, especially because you can like burn knuckle and drive rush through some of his projectiles, but it's not really consistent enough, I feel like, to keep doing it. So a lot of times I find myself just waiting for the JP to make a mistake and then just whip punishing him, and I end up taking a lot of drive damage, a lot of damage in general whenever I try to walk up and I'm not parrying or something like that. So yeah, I feel like this matchup is really tough, because you end up just kind of needing like perfect parries every single time that JP does spike, which is hard to do, because when you see spike come out, sometimes it looks like he's just throwing a projectile, because the animation is really similar and it's so quick to try to perfect parry that, especially when there's 3 different spikes. Yeah, I really struggle with this matchup, and I kind of think it's the worst one for Terry. Then we have Bison, which is another one that kind of surprises me, considering that I do think anybody that doesn't have a reversal is kind of an interesting character to say that they do really well against Terry, because Terry has some of the best corner pressure along with throw pressure in the game. His throw loops are very strong, and Bison is a character who doesn't really have a real reversal, and I find that if you have strong enough frame kills in the corner and setups, Bison doesn't really get to do much if you can lock him down. Obviously, playing the mid-game like neutral of throwing back Fireball and waiting for Bison to Psycho Crusher can be a little bit rough. But I do think with Terry's exceptional low forward, it's not too hard to get in on this man. I'd assume that a lot of the things they're talking about with what makes this character difficult to fight is maybe like scissor kicks or something like that. I could also see Devil's Rise being difficult, because Devil's Rise is kind of a difficult range to guess when you should do Terry's DP, especially because it goes straight up. But yeah, I am surprised to see him saying it's such a disadvantage for Terry. But yeah, as we start to go a little bit lower down this list, we can look at characters like Ed, who he believes has a slight disadvantage. I can definitely see that. We have Dalsum, who he believes does pretty well against Terry, and I can definitely see that. I think with Terry's grounded fireball and awkward, medium fireball, it can be a little bit difficult to get in on Dalsum, especially because burn knuckle isn't just the immediate easy answer for the most part that you could just use to get in, when most of the time Dalsums are sitting back at a far enough range that burn knuckle's not going to do much, especially when they're constantly throwing out slow fireballs that stop you in the middle of your burn knuckle. I, for a while, thought that Crack Shoot would be really good in this matchup, because it just has really good aerial range and it could punish a Dalsum. But honestly, like, by the time the Dalsum sees me using like a heavy Crack Shoot or something, they're already throwing out a normal and I get punished. So yeah, I can definitely see this being a difficult matchup for Terry. Honda is another one I'm also kind of surprised to see. I do feel like medium fireball is pretty decent for this matchup, as you can kind of throw it out as much as you want whenever a Honda is trying to do Honda headbutt. But for sumo slam, yeah, I definitely struggle in this matchup. I think for some reason the DP just does not hit where I need it to be most of the time. And other than that, I think there's something about Terry's normals that don't exactly go just as far as I need them to when I'm talking about like heavy punch and stuff like that. It's hard to stay on top of Honda in my opinion, so I could definitely see this. Ryu I definitely get. I think Ryu is basically just a stronger Terry for the most part. Terry's got some better damage in some situations, but yeah, I could definitely see Ryu being a bit more consistent and having more consistent options for sure. Then we have DJ. DJ, again, I think one of the only things that Terry really has in this matchup over DJ is just the low fireball, which does pretty well at punishing DJ's fast, double fireball that goes pretty far across the screen. But again, if he's already doing double and you don't do it fast enough, your low fireball will hit him and you will also get hit by his fireball. So yeah, it's not an end-all be-all solution to his fireball, but it is an option you can use. But yeah, I can definitely see why he would put this here. Then we have Aki. Another matchup that I'm kind of surprised to see here, but I guess it makes sense when you think about the fact that her game is pretty strong at poking him out for the most part. When he tries to get in, I do feel like Aki does do a pretty decent job at keeping him out. And I also believe that this list was made before Terry had his recent patch where he had his buffs, his plus frames and stuff like that. So some of these characters I'm sure would be moved down maybe a little bit, but currently it makes sense why they are where they are right now. All right, now we're moving on to even. Interestingly enough, he puts Chun-Li in the middle to say it's an even matchup. I'm very surprised to see that. I actually feel like, for me, my two most difficult matchups as Terry are usually JP and Chun-Li. That's probably just a me problem, though, that I struggle with perfect parrying Chun-Li's fireballs because they're so weird the way that they come out. And also just Chun-Li's online are just weird, man. They just do some weird-ass gimmicks, man. Hazanshu, like, every 2 seconds when I'm not ready for it. Yeah, they play hella strange. Yeah, this character's strange, Part of me doesn't really miss Chun-Li whenever I fight these characters, and when I fight these people that play her, and I'm like, God dang, bro, I don't remember playing like that. Y'all are crazy. Manon, I can definitely see. I'm surprised to see that she even has an even matchup with Terry. I think with the recent patches, patch for Terry, I think Manon would have to go a little bit lower. That's my personal opinion, though. Rashid, I'm also surprised to see that he thinks that Rashid is going to be an even matchup, but I guess I don't really struggle with Rashid, so I guess I could see with what he is talking about. Then we talk about Jamie. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think, me personally, I do find myself doing better against Jamies when I'm playing a character like Terry. I think Shotos in general just do pretty well against Jamie. If you have a strong enough DP, then dive kicks aren't really that scary, especially Terry's, because it recovers so fast and it just goes up really quick. So yeah, I don't think that matchup's too difficult. Even is interesting. I would say it's possibly a stretch, especially now that he's got his patch and he's got a lot better. Now we're moving on to the next tier, Slight Advantage. So these are the characters in this game that Kintio believes that Terry actually has an advantage on, which is weird to think about, considering that obviously it's a slight advantage, but the fact that he believes that Terry has a slight advantage over characters like Luke, Blanca, Ken, and Cammy. Very interesting to think about. Let's get through the characters I agree with. To start off, Zangief, I totally agree. Medium Kick does such a good job at keeping Zangief out, along with Heavy Kick, just chipping him out. I think Terry does exceptional damage as well, especially when you get someone into the corner, like Zangief, who doesn't really have a real reversal. And Zangief has a big health pool, but considering that Terry does so much damage in certain routes, I think it kind of balances itself out. So yeah, I think Terry does do a pretty good job, especially with one of the longest low forwards in the entire game. I don't think he struggles very much against Zangief. I have not found myself struggling with Zangief ever since I swapped to Terry, so I could definitely see that. Cammy, I do also find myself in a good spot most of the time fighting Cammies. I do think that she can punish Terry just like any other fireball by doing her spin knuckle across my fireball, but I do think Terry, like I've said previously, does pretty well against characters with dive kick because his DP is so fast. I found myself winning entire matchups with this character just by baiting out dive kick and then just doing a quick DP, and then I press my advantage and then, it's my turn. So it's a lot easier. Ken, wow, I am very surprised to see that Kintio believes that Terry has a slight advantage over Ken. A lot of people, in fact, I think everybody, let's be real, fucking everybody thinks that Ken is literally just better Terry. And honestly, they're right. Ken is definitely better Terry. For him to say that Terry has a slight advantage over Ken is very interesting. I was fully expecting to open up this list, look at disadvantage, and go, yep, there's Ken. The fact that he put him here, very interesting. Not even, but he thinks Terry has an advantage? Yeah, I don't know if I'm agreeing with that. I mean, I don't know. Kintio's sitting over there in Legends, so maybe it's a little bit different. Maybe there's tech, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't think that Terry has an advantage over Ken. I find myself really struggling in this matchup for the most part. I do just have to play incredibly slow and safe. If I make one mistake as Terry, Ken is there to punish it. So yeah, very difficult matchup. Moving on to Jury, I completely agree. If there's one matchup that I have completely found myself to take over entirely with Terry, it is definitely Jury. Another character with a dive kick, and this one is even easier to punish with Terry because it comes out, like I said, so quick. And also just, I don't know, man, having a low 4 that goes that far can really punish a lot of Jury setups. Anytime a character like Jury tries to hit you with some like spacing trap, most of the time you're able to just not get hit by it because you're like, nah, my low 4 goes far enough, you know? And honestly, I think having another low fireball similar to Jury's with Terry's is insane because it completely counters out Jury's, which a lot of characters already struggle to do. And then you can just do your OD if you want, you just run up. So yeah, it's, I think, a really strong matchup for Terry. Then we can move on to Chaluk. Chaluk, I am very surprised to see that Mr. Street Fighter himself is at a disadvantage against Terry from Kintio's belief. And this is, and like I said, this is before Terry's patch where he got buffed. So I don't know. I don't fully agree with this. I think Luke is another character similar to Ken that just does kind of have more consistent, reliable options than Terry, because Terry does feel like a strong version of a Shoto. Like he's a very strong Shoto, especially nowadays. But here's the thing. He's on the spectrum of less consistent, where Ryu is more like safer, but maybe his damage is not as crazy. Actually, that's not true. Ryu's damage is insane. Let's talk about maybe like, I mean, I guess Luke is the best example I can think of. Luke's damage is not like crazy insane, but he's pretty reliable, right? Terry has insane damage, but he's kind of inconsistent, you know? Like he doesn't exactly have the realest setups, you know? So yeah, I would say that I think Luke's probably better for the most part, but I mean, what are you gonna do? Kintio's got better, skills in this game than I do, so. All right, then we move on to Kimberly. All right, Kimberly, I also totally agree with. I do think that Terry just really doesn't struggle in this matchup at all. Burn Knuckle's so good for this matchup, dude. You see a Kimberly just sitting behind, just waiting, trying to teleport on you, man. You just Burn Knuckle him, man. Crackshoot does pretty well against teleport too, especially because it just goes right over them, and usually it's slow enough to punish them while they're in the middle of it. Yeah, I don't even really have to say much about this matchup. I genuinely think that Terry takes it pretty easily. All right, then we have Blanca. To say that Terry has an advantage over Blanca is not something I exactly agree with. I think Terry has some of the most awkward interactions a character could ever have against Blanca. When you're trying to use a fireball to bait out Blanca Ball and stuff like that, if you want to hold them on the other side of the screen and avoid it from using Blanca Ball, most characters like Ryu or Akuma could just throw out like a very slow fireball that could keep them on the other side of the screen. Terry's only fireball that doesn't get like Blanca Ball to go straight over it is his medium. But the thing about medium is that it's so fast and it doesn't go very far that you have to be ready for him to Blanca Ball, and you can't do it on reaction. So you have to kind of be throwing him out forever until they just so happen to want to Blanca Ball and they think maybe it's low. But you have no option to go in, so you can't really follow your fireball to get in after Blanca. There's also just a lot of really weird interactions with Terry and this character, I find, and honestly, I think maybe if you were comfortable enough in this matchup, like if you had the matchup knowledge, you could probably beat him, but I disagree. I genuinely think that Terry struggles with Blanca pretty heavily. All right, then we got to advantage. Now, when we talk about advantage, I could not agree more. Talk about Marissa, the character who gets punished the easiest. All right, so we talked about this before. What does Terry do well against? He does well against characters who do not have a real reversal. Well, that's Marissa. And on top of that, Terry has one of the best low forwards in the entire game, which is Marissa's weakness. She has armor, but her biggest weakness is that she can be punished by hitting low on all of these armored moves. So when you have a character like Terry, who has strong corner pressure, very strong throw pressure, and he has one of the best low forwards in the game, yeah, it's pretty easy to say that Terry kind of dominates in this matchup. And then we can talk about Lily. I think that Terry's best matchup in this game is Lily for sure. Terry does insanely well against this character, and considering that you can just Burn Knuckle and it beats out Lily's Condor, which is like her whole thing, is kind of insane. She can get wind, and if you time your burn knuckle at the same time, so let's say you bait it out with like a fireball or something, you know they're about to try to take their turn with Condor. You burn knuckle at the same time, you're gonna win. It's crazy. It either trades or you win. There's no losing it, unless you do it too late. And honestly, that makes this matchup pretty crazy. On top of that, another thing you can do to bait out Condor is just wait and then DP it on reaction. A lot of characters are pretty difficult to do this with, but considering that Terry's light DP is so fast, and it's so like quick and right in front of him, if you see Condor coming and you're ready for this move, your reactions are good enough, you're just gonna punish it every single time. Another thing is Lily doesn't have a real reversal. So once again, Terry does well against those characters. Not only does he have a strong throw game, but he also has his round wave, which gives him +5 and does drive damage, and is really strong against characters in the corner who do not have a real reversal. So Lily is the queen of getting punished by Terry, and I totally agree with this list. So now what I want to do is go and make my own and make some of the alterations that I think need to be made in this list, especially since the patch has happened for Terry, and I think some different things than Kintio does. Alright, so here we are with my version of the list, where I will first start up here. We'll put Terry at the top, and I would like to start with advantage because I'm actually going to keep it the same. I do think that characters that Terry does really well against are going to be Marissa, and I'm also going to put Lily right here down at the bottom. I think those are Terry's two best matchups without a doubt. That's really strong against both of these characters. And a few of the things that I'm going to do first is probably go through and put the characters that I agree with that he had already placed in this list. So starting with that, I'm going to move Zangief up here to slight advantage. I definitely agree with that. I also can agree with Cammy. I think that he does a good job against Cammy. And Jury as well. Definitely could see Jury. One of the other matchups that I actually think might be a little bit better for Terry, I'd actually say that Kimberly would be down here in advantage. I think he does really well against Kimberly, and especially now with the patch, I think he does even better against a lot of these other characters. Where we had certain characters like Chun at even, I'm going to disagree, and I'm actually going to say that I think it's a slight disadvantage, and I think that Chun is honestly pretty good against Terry and is pretty difficult to deal with as Terry. Another character like that I want to say is also Rashid. I do not think that this matchup is exactly even. I know that while Rashid got a little bit nerfed, Terry got buffed, I still disagree. I do think that Rashid does a little bit better than Terry because he's just much more of a consistent character overall, and I don't think that Terry has the advantage in this matchup. On top of that, I also think Ryu and Ken are also going to go around here, though I might have to put Ken a little bit higher. I'll just put Ken at the top of this list because I do think that he is basically Terry, but way more consistent. And genuinely, I do think that a lot of the times he kind of just has the options that Terry wishes he had. So yeah, Terry's got more consistent damage for the most part, but Ken has insane corner carry without having to spend as much meter that Terry does. And he also has insane mix-ups. So yeah, I think that Ken does better in this matchup than Kintio believes. One thing that I will say though is I do think that Terry's actually pretty even around the Aki matchup, in my current level at least. And remember, that's where I'm putting a lot of these characters. It's based off where I fight people, from the 1800, 1900 range, not exactly pro level. So obviously it's a little bit different. Another matchup that I'm going to say is Manon. I think this matchup is decently even. I have had Manons that I really struggle with, and I have Manons that I really just don't struggle with at all. So similar to Aki, I think that it is a decently even matchup for the most part. Another character that I think should go in slight disadvantage is also going to be Luke, another Shoto that is definitely just more consistent than Terry. His Fireball does really well against Terry, and I genuinely don't think that Terry has anything that makes him more consistent than Luke or even with Luke. I think Luke has slightly better options for the most part. Now with the Ed nerfs, I do think that while I would have said slight disadvantage for Ed, now with his nerfs, I would definitely say that it's about even. I think this matchup can go about either way, and Burn Knuckle is honestly pretty strong in this matchup. Crack Shoot's not going to do anything, but Burn Knuckle really does allow you to close the gap for the most part against Ed, who wants to sit at that farther mid-range against Terry and kind of hold him there. Yeah, Terry can kind of just pass that for the most part if he wants to now, and it's pretty strong. I would say that Bison is another character who I think has a slight advantage over Terry, and I don't think that it is a complete advantage, unlike Akuma, where I think Akuma has an insane advantage over Terry because he's basically Terry but better. I mean, like, obviously I said that about Ken, but Akuma has even better options than Ken for the most part. So yeah, I think this matchup is great for Akuma, and he has a million different aerial options that he can use to try to bait out Terry and punish him. So yeah, this is a great matchup. Along with another matchup which I believe to be very difficult for Terry, which is Blanka. I have seen not very much tech pushed to the forefront when it comes to fighting Blanka as Terry, because not a lot of people know what to do against this character, and I genuinely do think that it's a really difficult matchup. I have learned for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and I still struggle desperately when I fight strong Blanka players, and honestly I think part of it really is due to a lot of Terry's options, and you know, a lot of it's due to me as well, but I don't think this is a great matchup for him. DJ, I think, is also a slight disadvantage. Dulcim, I think, is also a slight disadvantage as well. E Honda, I would have to say, is probably... I think E Honda is probably also going to go into that... No, I could say it's about even. I think Terry does decently good against Honda. I think you just have to be more consistent, because I would normally say he's probably... Honda would do a little bit better, but considering that, you know, if your Terry's consistent enough, then this matchup shouldn't be that difficult. So, in fact, you know what? I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to say that I think Terry does a good job against Honda. Then we have Guile, who actually think this matchup is decently even. I've talked about it before. I know that a lot of people tend to say that Terry definitely struggles in this matchup, but honestly, I do agree. I think Terry does pretty dang good in it, and I have fought a lot of Guiles, and when I fight Guile online with Terry, I'm not really ever worried, because, you know, if he Sonic Blades, you have one of the best low forwards in the game that goes under that, punishes it. If he does Fireball, you have a low Fireball, which checks and makes it trade, because his Fireball might hit you, but yours is going to hit him as well. And then you also have OD Fireball, which is going to allow you to walk forward on Guile and, you know, just pressure him. So, yeah, very strong options. Then we have Jamie. I think Terry definitely has a slight disadvantage. I think Terry definitely has a slight advantage over Jamie overall, matchup-wise. And, yeah, there's not much to say about that one. Then we can talk about JP, which I find to be one of Terry's most difficult matchups overall. I heavily struggle with this matchup, and I have been trying for a very long time to figure out what you can do to punish him, and I'm out of answers. It's really difficult. You have to find very, very, very specific tech for the most part, other than just playing incredibly patient, incredibly safe, and perfectly timing your parries. Perfect pairing as many as things as possible with this character, and yeah, it's a super difficult matchup. It's just one you gotta, feels like you're climbing a mountain, but whenever you do win, it does feel really good because it's insanely difficult. Then we have Mai. Now Mai has only been out for I think like a week or two at this point, but from what I can find, I think Mai's really strong. I think Mai's a better character than Terry overall, and I think that her stupid brain dead OD fan mix that she gets for no reason. Capcom, fix your character. God dang, bro. This character's so poorly made, it's not even funny. I think that she has definitely an advantage over Terry for the most part, and he really does struggle to do a lot in this matchup, considering she can just do whatever she wants, honestly. She can just push advantage with OD fan. Yeah, Terry has a Fireball that's real, so it can punish the not charge fan, but considering that she doesn't really have to worry about not charging her whole fan, like, because she could OD it as well, like, yeah, I think this matchup's definitely in Mai's favor. This character's stupid, man. I really don't enjoy this character for the most part when I'm fighting her. And that is going to be our list. We have my list right here on the right, and we have Kintio's list on the left. So these are the comparisons that I wanted to make, and overall I do think that mine are probably a little bit more accurate considering just because of the patch. Definitely some of these changes made some of these characters a little bit easier and some of them a little bit more difficult to deal with. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave this right now. I hope you guys enjoyed. I wanted to try something a little bit different today so you guys could still have a little bit of a tier list video because I know you guys enjoy those, but I wanted to relate it with Street Fighter, with a character that I know a lot of, a character that I have a lot of information about. So yeah, that's going to be it, and I'm out of here. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.